The New York City-based film distribution company A24 was launched by Daniel Katz, David Fenkel, and John Hodges in August 2012. Its first film, A Glimpse Inside the Mind of Charles Swan III, was released on February 8, 2013. That same year, the company entered multi-year distribution deals with DirecTV Cinema and Amazon Prime. At the 2016 Academy Awards, films released the previous year by A24 received 7 nominations. Amy won for Best Documentary Feature, Ex Machina won for Best Visual Effects, and Brie Larson was awarded Best Actress for her performance in Room. A24 became a production studio in 2016, as well fully financing its first feature film, Moonlight, in a partnership with Plan B Entertainment. The film was released to universal acclaim and won 3 Academy Awards from 8 nominations, including Best Picture. Greta Gerwig's Lady Bird and Bo Burnham's 8th Grade are A24's highest-rated films on Rotten Tomatoes with a 99% approval rating. In 2018 and 2019, respectively, the studio announced multi-year partnerships with Apple TV and Showtime networks for the digital releases of some of its upcoming films. The 2021 film Lamb was the first A24 distributed film to be selected as a country's official entry for the Academy Award for Best International Feature Film. In 2022, Everything Everywhere All at Once overtook the 2018 film Hereditary as A24's highest-grossing movie worldwide with earnings of over $100 million at the box office. Plot: in China, years before the events of the film, Evelyn Xuan Wang falls in love with Waymond Wang. Against her father's objections, she elopes with Waymond, emigrating to the United States, where they purchase and run a laundromat. Soon after, Evelyn gives birth to their daughter, Joy, who becomes rebellious and begins to drift away from the family as she reaches adulthood. Part 1, Everything. Evelyn is a Chinese-American immigrant who runs a struggling laundromat with Waymond. Tensions are high, the laundromat is being audited by the IRS, Waymond is trying to serve Evelyn divorce papers, Evelyn's demanding father, referred to as Gong Gong, has just arrived from Hong Kong, and Evelyn's lesbian daughter Joy has been trying to get her mother to accept her girlfriend, Becky. At a meeting with IRS Inspector Deirdre Beaubairdre, Waymond's personality changes when his body is briefly taken over by Alpha Waymond, a version of Waymond from a universe he calls the Alphaverse. Alpha Waymond explains to Evelyn that many parallel universes exist, since every choice made creates a new universe. The people of the Alphaverse, led by the late Alpha Evelyn, developed verse-jumping technology that allows people to access the skills, memories, and body of their parallel universe counterparts by fulfilling specific conditions. The multiverse is being threatened by Yobutapaki, the Alphaverse version of Joy. Her mind was splintered after Alpha Evelyn pushed her to extensively verse jump. Yobutapaki now experiences all universes at once and can verse jump and manipulate matter at will. With her godlike power she has created a black hole-like everything bagel that can potentially destroy the multiverse. Evelyn is given verse-jumping technology to fight Yobutapaki's verse-jumping minions, who begin converging in the IRS building. Evelyn learns of Waymond's plans to divorce her and discovers other lives where she made different choices and flourished, such as by becoming a kung fu master and movie star instead of leaving China with Waymond, who becomes a successful businessman. Alpha Waymond comes to believe that Evelyn, as the greatest failure of all Evelyns of the multiverse, has the untapped potential to defeat Yobutapaki. Alpha Gong Gong instructs Evelyn to kill Joy to hinder Yobutapaki, but Evelyn refuses. She decides that she must face Yobutapaki by gaining the same powers as her, so she verse jumps repeatedly while battling Yobutapaki's minions and Alpha Gong Gong's soldiers. After the battle, Alpha Waymond is located and killed by Yobutapaki in the Alphaverse, and Evelyn's mind splinters. Part 2, Everywhere. Evelyn verse jumps to other, bizarre universes, including one in which humans have hot dogs for fingers and she is in a romantic relationship with Deirdre, and another where she works alongside a teppanyaki chef Chad, who is secretly puppeteered by a raccoon. She learns that Yobutapaki created the everything bagel not to destroy everything, but to destroy herself, and has been searching for an Evelyn who can understand her. Yobutapaki feels that because there are so many vast universes and unending chaos, nothing truly matters, and she wishes to simply no longer exist. In other universes, the Wongs are about to lose the laundromat due to tax errors, hot dog finger Evelyn's relationship with Deirdre falls apart, Chef Evelyn exposes the raccoon puppeteering Chad, and businessman Waymond rejects movie star Evelyn after decades apart. Evelyn is nearly swayed to Yobutapaki's cause after a long philosophical discussion throughout several universes and stabs her universe's Waymond. She almost joins Yobutapaki in entering the bagel, but stops when she hears Waymond's pleas for both Evelyn and Alpha Gong Gong's fighters to stop fighting, be kind, and have hope, even in a universe where nothing seems to make sense. Evelyn defeats Alpha Gong Gong and Yobutapaki's fighters by using her multiverse knowledge to find what is hurting each of them and brings them happiness. Evelyn reaches Yobutapaki and tells her that she is not alone and that Evelyn will always choose to be with her, despite everywhere else she could be. Meanwhile, in a parallel universe, Evelyn confronts Gong Gong and reconciles with Waymond and Joy, and Waymond convinces Deirdre to let the Wongs redo their taxes. Yobutapaki initially rejects Evelyn, but returns to her, and they embrace. Part 3, All at Once. Shortly thereafter, the family's relationships and lives have improved. Becky is now regarded as a part of the family. Waymond and Evelyn share a brief but romantic moment for the first time in a long while, and they return to the IRS building on a second chance to file their taxes. As Deirdre talks, Evelyn's attention is momentarily drawn to her alternate selves and the multiverse, before she grounds herself back in her home universe. Cast: Michelle Yeoh as Evelyn Chuan Wang, a dissatisfied and overwhelmed laundromat owner. Stephanie Hsu as Joy Wang / Yobutapaki, Evelyn's daughter, and a threat to the multiverse. Ke Hui Chuan as Waymond Wang, Evelyn's meek and goofy husband. James Hong as Gong Gong, Evelyn's demanding father. Jamie Lee Curtis as Deirdre Beaubairdre, an IRS inspector. Jenny Slate as Debbie the dog mom, a laundromat customer. The character's original name was changed for the film's digital release because of its association with Jewish stereotypes. Harry Shum Jr. as Chad, a teppanyaki chef working alongside Evelyn in an alternate universe. Tolly Metal as Becky Srieger, Joy's girlfriend. Additionally, Biff With appears as Rick, a laundromat customer. Sunita Mani and Aaron Lazar appear as actors in a musical film Evelyn watches. Audrey Wasilewski and Peter Banifaz appear as Alpha RV officers. Daniel Skynyrd appears as district manager, and Andy Le and Brian Le appear as Alpha trophy jumpers. Randy Newman, who has scored 9 Disney Pixar animated films, appears in an uncredited role as the voice of Raccacoonie, a reference to the Pixar animated film Ratatouille. He is officially credited as a featured artist on the track Now We're Cookin'. Dan Kwan has uncredited cameos as a man sucked into the bagel and a mugger. Production, development and writing. CO directors Dan Kwan and Daniel Skynyrd stated they began researching the concept of the multiverse in 2010, after being exposed to the concept of modal realism in the 1986 film Sherman's March. Kwan described the release of the 2018 film Spider-Man, Into the Spider-Verse, which also features a multiverse concept, as a little upsetting because we were like, oh shit, everyone's going to beat us to this thing we've been working on. He also stated, watching the second season of Rick and Morty was really painful. I was like, they've already done all the ideas we thought were original. It was a really frustrating experience. So I stopped watching Rick and Morty while we were writing this project. In early drafts, the directors planned for the main character to have undiagnosed attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Through his research for the project, Kwon learned that he himself had undiagnosed ADHD. The universe in which Evelyn trains in martial arts and becomes an action movie star features scenes visually and contextually inspired by the films of Hong Kong director Wong Kar-wai. Chris Lee of Vulture wrote that these scenes conjure a mood of exquisite romantic yearning that will be instantly recognizable as touchstones of Wong's works. The universe in which Evelyn and Joy are rocks was influenced by the 1969 children's book Sylvester and the Magic Pebble and the 2017 video game Everything. Kwon stated that the idea of the Everything Bagel created by Yobuta Paki started as just a throwaway joke. Skynyrd noted that they spent time attempting to develop the religion of bagel followers, but encountered complications. A nihilist. Should there be dogma? Should there be a book? What should their practices be as a religion? The bagel stuck because it became such a useful, simple symbol that we could point to as filmmakers. And you don't have to explain it much beyond the joke. Casting. During pre-production, Jackie Chan was considered for the starring role. The script was originally written for him, before Kwon and Skynyrd changed their minds and reconceived the lead role as a woman, feeling that it would make the husband-wife dynamic in the story more relatable. When the script was initially rewritten with the lead character as a woman, the character was renamed Michelle Wong. According to Michelle Yeoh, if you ask the Daniels, when they started on this draft, they focused on, well, we are doing this for Michelle Yeoh. The character's name was ultimately changed to Evelyn, despite the parallels in the final film between Yeoh and the universe in which Evelyn is a martial artist and movie star. Yeoh opposed naming the character Michelle, stating that she is not called Michelle because Evelyn deserves her own story to be told. This is a very ordinary mother housewife who is trying her best to be a good mother to her daughter, a good daughter to her father, a wife that's trying to keep the family together. I don't like to integrate me, Michelle Yeoh, into the characters that I play, because they all deserve their own journey and their stories to be told. It was announced in August 2018 that Yeoh and Awkwafina were cast to star in an interdimensional action film from Kwon and Skynyrd, with Anthony and Joe Russo set to produce. Awkwafina exited the project due to scheduling conflicts in January 2020. Stephanie Hsu, James Hong, Ke Hui Chuan, and Jamie Lee Curtis joined the cast, with Hsu replacing Awkwafina. It marked Kwon's return to film acting, from which he had retired in 2002 due to a lack of casting opportunities. Filming began in January 2020, with A24 announcing that it would finance and distribute the film. Much of the film was shot in Simi Valley, California. Principal photography concluded in early March 2020 during the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. Themes. Everything Everywhere All at Once incorporates elements from a number of genres and film mediums, including black comedy, science fiction, fantasy, martial arts films, and animation. A.O. Scott of the New York Times described the film as a swirl of genre anarchy, explaining that while the hectic action sequences and flights of science fiction mumbo-jumbo are a big part of the fun, they aren't really the point. A bittersweet domestic drama, a marital comedy, a story of immigrants striving and a heart-filled ballad of mother-daughter love. The film explores the concepts of the meaning of life and nihilism. According to Charles Bramesco of The Guardian, the bagel of doom and its tightening grip on Evelyn's daughter lend themselves to the climactic declaration that there's nothing worse than submitting to the nihilism so trendy with the next generation. Our lone hope of recourse is to embrace all the love and beauty surrounding us, if only we're present enough to see it. This nihilism is also explored through the film's exploration of Asian American identity. An Onlin Cheng wrote in The Washington Post, it's not only that the multiverse acts as a metaphor for the immigrant Asian American experience, or a convenient parable for the dislocations and personality splits suffered by hyphenated citizens. It also becomes a rather heady vehicle for confronting and negotiating Asian pessimism, a term she uses in reference to Afro-pessimism. Consequences. Clint Worthington wrote that for all its Dadaist absurdism and blink if you miss it pace, Daniels weaves the chaotic possibilities into the multiverse into a cohesive story about the aches and pains of the road not traveled, and the need to carve out your own meaning in a meaningless universe. Describing Yobutapaki's modus operandi, Worthington notes the living contradiction that is the everything bagel. If you put everything on a bagel, what more is left? And if you've experienced everything that the multiverse can offer, what's the point of any of it? CO director Daniel Kwan stated that the everything bagel concept did two things. It allowed us to talk about nihilism without being too eye-roll-y. And it creates a MacGuffin, a doomsday device. If in the first half of the movie, people think that the bagel is here to destroy the world, and in the second half you realize it's a depressed person trying to destroy themselves, it just takes everything about action movies and turns it into something more personal. The film engages textually and metatextually with the real world of the viewer. Critics have noted that one version of Evelyn, a famous martial arts movie star, is a portrayal of Yeo herself, that Ke Hui Kwan's experience as a stunt coordinator is used digitally in Wayman's fight scenes, and that James Hong's transformation into a more sinister, English-fluent, Machiavellian strategist parallels his character Lo Pan in Big Trouble in Little China. Music. The musical score was composed by Sun Lux, whose members are Ryan Lott, Ian Chong, and Rafiq Badia. Daniels asked them to approach the score individually, and not as a band. Lott said, "I think that the complete picture of not only who we are as a band, but also who we are as individuals and what we have accomplished and the places we've gone creatively individually, meant for them that there was a possibility that many of these universes of sound could be within reach with this particular trio." Sun Lux took 2 to 3 years to compose the score, which includes more than 100 musical cues. The soundtrack album has 49 pieces and runs for more than 2 hours. It features several prominent musicians, including Mitski, David Byrne, a flute-playing Andre 3000, Randy Newman, Moses Sumney, and Y Music. 2 songs, This Is a Life featuring Mitski and Byrne and Fence featuring Sumney, were released as singles on March 4 and 14, 2022. The album was released on March 25 to positive critical response. Release. Theatrical. Everything Everywhere All at Once had its world premiere at the South by Southwest Film Festival on March 11, 2022. It had a limited release in theaters on March 25, 2022, followed by a nationwide release on April 8, in the United States by A24. On March 30, 2022, the film was released in select IMAX theaters in the US for one night only. Due to the popularity of the film, it returned to select IMAX theaters for 1 week starting on April 29, 2022. The film was not released in most parts of the Middle East, including Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, due to censorship of LGBT issues in those countries. The film was released in the United Kingdom on May 13, 2022. The film was scheduled to be re-released in U.S. theaters on July 29, 2022, unchanged but adding an introduction by the Daniels and 8 minutes of outtakes after the credits. Home media. The film was released on digital streaming platforms on June 7, 2022, and was released on Blu-ray, DVD, and Ultra HD Blu-ray on July 5, 2022, by Lionsgate Home Entertainment. Reception. Box office. Everything Everywhere All at Once grossed $70 million in the United States and Canada and $31.3 million in other territories, for a worldwide total of $101.30 million. In the United States and Canada, it earned $509,600 from 10 venues in its opening weekend. Its debut had a theater average of $50,965, the second best since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic for a platform release, and the then best opening theater average in 2022. In its second weekend, the film grossed $1.1 million from 38 theaters, finishing 9th at the box office. It received a wide expansion in its third weekend, going from 38 to 1,250 theaters. It made $6.1 million, finishing 6th at the box office. Playing in 2,220 theaters the following weekend, it earned $6.2 million, finishing 4th. In its sixth weekend, it added $5.5 million, part of which was attributed to a wider IMAX release following its successful box office run up to that point. It added $3.5 million in its seventh weekend, and another $3.3 million in its eighth. By May 21 it had made over $51 million, surpassing Uncut Gems as A24's highest-grossing film domestically. By June 9 it had made over $80 million, surpassing Hereditary as A24's highest-grossing film of all time. It remained in the box office top 10 before dropping out in its 16th weekend. On July 31, the film crossed the $100 million mark worldwide, the first independent film of the pandemic and in A24's history to do so. Outside of the US, other top-earning territories as of July 31 were the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, Russia, Taiwan, Mexico, Hong Kong, Germany, and the Netherlands. Critical response. On the review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, the film has an approval rating of 95% based on 344 reviews, with an average rating of 8.6/10. The website's consensus reads, led by an outstanding Michelle Yeoh, Everything Everywhere All at Once lives up to its title with an expertly calibrated assault on the senses. On August 26, 2022, Rotten Tomatoes users voted Everything Everywhere All at Once as A24's best film of all time in their A24 showdown. Metacritic, which uses a weighted average, assigned the film a score of 81 out of 100, based on 54 critics, indicating universal acclaim. Audiences polled by Post-Track gave it an 89% positive score, with 77% saying that they would definitely recommend it. David Ehrlich of IndieWire called it an orgiastic work of slap-happy genius, praising the direction and performances, particularly Yeoh's. The Hollywood Reporter's David Rooney called it a frenetically plotted serve of stoner heaven, is insanely imaginative and often a lot of fun, complimenting the cast and score, but found the handling of the story's underlying theme underwhelming. In her review for RogerEbert.com, Maria E. Gates commended Yeoh's performance, writing, Yeoh is the anchor of the film, given a role that showcases her wide range of talents, from her fine martial art skills to her superb comic timing to her ability to excavate endless depths of rich human emotion often just from a glance or a reaction. Charles Bramesco, writing for The Guardian, complimented the Daniels for constructing a large, elaborate, polished and detailed expression of a vision. Amy Nicholson of The Wall Street Journal wrote, over its nearly 2.5-hour running time, the movie's ambitions double, and double again, as though it's a petri dish teeming with Mr. Kwan and Mr. Skynert's wildest ideas. In her review for Vanity Fair, Maureen Ryan highlighted Yeoh's performance, writing, Yeoh imbues Evelyn with moving shades of melancholy, regret, resolve and growing curiosity, and adding that she makes her embrace of lead character energy positively gripping. Adam Naiman of The Ringer referred to the film as a love letter to Yeoh, adding, Everything Everywhere All at Once is extremely poignant, giving its 59-year-old star a chance to flex unexpected acting muscles while revisiting the high-flying fight choreography that made her a global icon back in the 1990s. In his review for Chicago Sun-Times, Jake Coyle wrote that though everything everywhere can verge on overload, it's this liberating sense of limitless possibility that the movie leaves you filled with, both in its freewheeling anything-goes playfulness and in its surprisingly tender portrait of existential despair. Dissenting reviews include those of Richard Brody for The New Yorker, who dismissed it as a sickly cynical feature-length directorial pitch reel for a Marvel movie, and Keith Garlington, who noted that while the film was an ambitious task, the film often gives way to overindulgence, making this overlong and overstuffed genre stew a well-meaning but exhausting experience. Letterboxd announced that it had briefly become the highest-rated film of all time on the site, surpassing The Godfather and Parasite. As of September 2022, it remains in the top 15.